Welcome back to this segment of Coach's Corner, and our big thanks to Wendy Landis in the last segment. Now it's time to talk Pohai football with head coach Scott Harmon. And head coach, thanks for being with us. Wow, that's not the way we wanted that first game to end with Enid, but it was a tough game. You had a lot of players really step up. That field goal, I want to ask you about that right off the bat, and a lot of folks are familiar with it. It went through, the points were on the board, and then it was taken back. Tell us a little bit about that, and what was that conversation? I'm in the press box, and I'm wishing I could hear the conversation between you and the ref. What was said? What was said? What was said? Please.
Well, I know that crew. They're from Bartlesville, and they've been doing our games for a long time, or my games, I should say. The field goal was deemed good. The back judge, who's in charge of the play clock, said that he had double zeros before he thought the ball was snapped. And I hate to disagree with him, but I do. And you don't cry over spilled milk or anything like that. But it's pretty heated conversation between two competitive guys there down at the end because those guys are competitive too. They want to do things right. So they give it to me as much as I give it to them.
Right, right. Well, the Wildcats fell just a few points short of a victory, 19-17, with the Enid Plainsmen coming to town. And Enid maybe giving us a little bit of payback for taking that victory from them last year. But there were some highlights, and there were some players that really stepped up. Could you please give us a little shout out, a little recognition for some of your team leaders?
We started 6 sophomores. I think we played 9 quite a bit. We haven't had a whole lot of preparation. When we got our Stillwater scrimmage canceled, and then we only played really a half in your second scrimmage against Cushing because they had a big game the next week. So you're really going in there with a bunch of babies that hadn't had a lot of reps, and we really probably need it. When you look at both teams, Enid had a game the week before, and you usually make a pretty good jump from week 1 to week 2. So you could tell, and we kind of think that was the difference in the ball game. Really proud of our young kids, really proud of our offensive line. Only gave up one really big play, in my opinion, and they did a real good job on the play. It was more their execution than our lack of, I thought. So a lot of positive things come out of there. We scored 17 points and a half, and we haven't scored that many points against Enid in the 2 years I've been here combined. So, with those young kids, we've probably got as good as skilled kids as we've had in a long time, and a lot of them are really young. It's just we're going to go through some growing pains with them. We realize that, but that's not going to do anything but help us down the road.
Yeah, head coach Scott Harmon from the Pohai Wildcat football team with us on this edition of Coach's Corner. And coach, head coach, football, middle of the pandemic. Before we talk about Tulsa McLean at Ardmore for the next 2 weeks, and mainly Tulsa McLean, before we talk about that, just the challenges as a head coach and all of the precautions and all of the safety measures that you as a coach with a lot of athletes on your team have to navigate. How has that affected practice, affected games and things like that for you?
If I told you it hadn't affected us, I'd be lying. We spend a lot of time doing non-football stuff. You know what I mean? Especially me, and I really appreciate my assistant coaches because they have had to kind of take over a lot of the things that I kind of like to do myself. Particularly Coach Parker. He's calling plays. I really like to call plays, but I just don't have enough time to do it and do it well. I just got, I'm here at 7 in the morning taking temperatures, before everybody gets in there. We spend a lot of time monitoring the weight room and the locker rooms and minutes in and with mask. And so you're just doing a lot of things that take up time that is usually for football and coaching this football. And we've got, we're playing a lot of sophomores and juniors, and we could really use that time to our advantage, to be honest with you. But we got to, we just got to do it. We'd rather do that than not play. I promise you that. So our kids and coaches have been really good. Our administration, God bless them. They've been, wonderful to work for during this time. I can't imagine. I'm a former principal. I kind of know a little bit about administration, and I'm glad I'm just a football coach right now, to be honest with you. I wouldn't want to be a principal right now during a pandemic if you know it, if it hair lipped the governor. I just wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk Tulsa McLean. They're on the schedule now. The Wildcats, two away games in a row. We're talking to Tulsa McLean, and then a big road trip down to Ardmore, and then back at home here in just a couple of weeks with Sand Springs on the schedule. But before you get to Sand Springs at Sullivan Stadium, you got to get through Tulsa McLean and Ardmore. Let's just focus on Tulsa McLean. We'll talk about Ardmore another time. But Tulsa McLean, what do you see when you look at the tape of that team?
We see a lot of really good athletes. They've got some good team speed. They've got some big kids in there. They don't have a lot of depth because for a 4A team, I think they've got about 34 or 35 on the roster. So some of those kids are going both ways. I know their quarterback plays both ways, so we'll try to use our depth to help us a little bit. We'll try to use our size and our run game to kind of wear them down a little bit. That's really our MO as we go into this season, to try to pound people and then play action off of it a little bit. So that won't change anything. We'll try to prevent the big play on defense and win the special teams ball game. And that's kind of what we do every week. We try to play great defense. We try not to turn the ball over. Like last week, we didn't have any turnovers or any sacks with our starting quarterback in there. So those are things that give you a chance to win. If we have a break or two last week, we'd be 1-0 and everybody be rah, rah, rah. So as coaches, we kind of take a step back and we look at those things. And what we're focusing on this week is just getting better, going down to McLean, getting away from everything. Last week was pretty much a circus atmosphere for us. Coaches don't like. It was kind of like a homecoming on steroids with everything going on, and it was just it was really hard to concentrate on football, to be honest with you. So we're going to go to Tulsa McLean and kind of get away from everything and try to hopefully we put our best effort of the year forward.
Well, what are the keys to that game with McLean from your perspective now? I mean, you're very studied on Tulsa McLean and the athletes they have. So in your opinion, right now, just what do you think about Ohio and the strategy for that game?
Well, we've got to tackle well. They've got some really talented kids that run the ball well. So if they get you out in space, they can kind of make you look bad. So we'll have to tackle well. As I want our young running backs to press the hole a little bit better this week. They were tending to jump around and bounce around like they do when they're young. But we really need to press the hole. That's called when we run our running plays, and that'll help our linemen out a little bit. So we just want to kind of stick with our system, which is run the ball effectively, move the chains, don't turn the ball over, play really good defense, and win the kicking game. And then we generally, if we do all those things, we'll have a shot to win just like last week.
Yeah, for sure. Quickly about Ardmore, that's a long trip down to Ardmore. Now, this came about when we lost the Guthrie matchup. Is that right?
Guthrie dropped us. Guthrie's been beating up on us for about a decade. And then when we finally kind of got in here, when my first year here, we played them really close down there. And then our second year here, we beat them. So they decided to go a different route. And in non-district, we weren't real happy with that decision, to be quite honest with you. But when it did happen, we were kind of scrambling for some games. And, I wanted a team that I felt like we could be competitive with in non-district, and it was kind of tough to find one in the region. So we decided to go outside of the region, and Ardmore was one of the ones that agreed would come back to us and come to our home stadium for a kind of return to favor in 21. So that's why we decided to do that.
Yeah. High football, the season just getting started, and of course they've been at it and practicing and preparing, and of course your Pohai Wildcats 0-1 right now. Season is young. Headed to Tulsa McLean this Friday night, and the next Friday night to Ardmore, then back to Sullivan Stadium the next week for Sand Springs. We're looking forward to a big season. Now, capacity, limited availability, a limited amount of tickets are available, of course, for to facilitate the social distancing you're most comfortable doing at Sullivan Stadium. So be sure to check out pcps.us if you want more information on all of that. And Coach Scott Harmon. We're excited about the rest of the season. And I know your athletes are too. How happy are they to be able to play? Because coming into the season prior, there was a big question mark. Would the season happen? And the fact that they're out there and they're able to play, you got to feel good about that. I'm assuming that they're extremely ecstatic about just getting to play.
You bet. They put a lot of hard work in. Unfortunately, we didn't get the spring, and we're a group that probably really needed that, as young as we are. So, we're still catching up a little bit with these young kids. Every time they go out, the game will kind of slow down for them a little bit because they just need that varsity experience. And by 3 or 4 games into this year, you'll see some changes in them, and the game will just kind of slow down. So we're pleased with where we're at. You know what I mean? A couple of breaks here, a couple of breaks there. We're 1-0 instead of 0-1. So no excuses. We'll go out and get something done this week and try to get to 1-1.
Absolutely. Coach Scott Harmon, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sean.
That's head coach Scott Harmon on Coach's Corner, and we look forward to visiting with the coach on a regular basis on Coach's Corner throughout the entire football season. And we'll also look forward to speaking with Coach Harmon on 101 Country KPNC on the feature Wildcat Way, which starts very soon. And we'll have Coach Harmon on the phone with us for those interviews on the radio. For Ponca City Public Schools, I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Big thank you to Wendy Landis, head coach of the Pohai cross country team, with us earlier, and our appreciation and thanks to Coach Harmon as well. Until next time, thank you for watching.